All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge Podcast. Now, with a record of 31 and 42, it's safe to say that the Los Angeles Lakers have been the biggest disappointment of this NBA season. The Lakers added a who's who of future Hall of Famers to their roster over the offseason as they were expected to be the team to beat for the NBA title. But through injuries and a lack of chemistry on the court, the Lakers find themselves holding on to a thread or holding on by a thread for a slot in the postseason, as you know, there really doesn't seem to be any relief in sight for this squad. And I have the pleasure uh, this evening to be teamed up with one of my tag team partners here, Cal Wonder God. Cal, are you out there? And what's going on? As there is plenty to talk about this evening about the Lakers. Okay, while Cal gets himself set, I will bring it in and continue talking about the Lakers. They didn't make any moves at the trade deadline. And I know that there are some people out there who wanted to say, well, you know what, you needed to go out there and trade Russell Westbrook. And of course, you know, people, in my money or my opinion at least, you know, they're trying to put too much on Westbrook, you know, in regards to, you know, like putting too much of the blame for the Lakers' struggles this season on Westbrook. It's not just about him. I think it's about the team. And I think for me, for my money, you know, with Westbrook, it's one of those where there's nothing that's really changed about his game. He is who he is. Russell Westbrook, the player for the Lakers, is the same player that he was with the Oklahoma City Thunder. Same player with the Houston Rockets and the Washington Wizards, and also collegiately at UCLA. It's all about him getting to the basket. He's not a dynamic perimeter shooter, and people are all of a sudden acting like, you know, Westbrook forgot how to shoot. That's not his game. So, Cal, I want you to, you know, chime in here and give your thoughts as far as like what's going on with the Lakers so far this season.
Thank you for having me, William, and I appreciate being here with you on 300 Pounds in Sports Knowledge podcast and talking a little bit about the Lakers today. And like you said, no, we're not going to blame Russell. But Russell is convenient as a scapegoat for, LeBron, if you want to be simple and plain. LeBron signed off on the team that the Lakers have. Am I correct?
Absolutely.
Okay, so the blame starts with him because he's your best player. I would tell you the Lakers, they got bad things to talk about with them too. The Lakers' woes basically start with defense. They went from the year they won in a bubble, being number one defensively. They started out last year, I think, in the top five and stood to like 12 or 13th in defense last year. They basically got ran out of the first round of the playoffs. But the Lakers' woes started when Anthony Davis, Mr. Twinkie Phillip himself, got hurt last year. And they never recovered. They tried to come back in the playoffs. The Lakers looked last year, from about midpoint last year, they looked the same way they looked this year. They're shooting about 34% from three-point line, which makes them 19th in the league. Right now, they're sitting in ninth place in the West, which I'm sure you've told the people that's listening. Ninth place in the West at 31 and 42. That's not going to scare anybody. And technically, as the old NBA rules applied, in the ninth place right now, currently, you would not get into the playoffs right now. But they've mixed it up and given everybody a chance. And I think it's defense, man. And the fact that here you got LeBron in year 20, 19 or 20, whatever it is, averaging 30 points a game despite 42 losses. And he's leading the league in scoring. So what it tells me is that his focus is not about winning. It's about, how many points he can score. Because if the Lakers were winning and the points were being spread out properly, and I understand that LeBron, he had to step up his points per game because of the loss of AD, and kind of like the way Russ is playing, but like you said, Russ is not doing anything different. It's coaching and it's the Lakers defense. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, to your point, in regards to the Lakers D, right now they're 26th in the NBA in points allowed this season. They're giving up more than 114 per game. That's not going to get it done. We talk about LeBron, and LeBron is one of the greatest players that has ever played in the NBA. But the thing is, it's like LeBron, in my opinion, really, picks his spots when he's going to play D, and you can't go out there and win games like that. Defensive basketball has to be a mentality. And this is not something as far as like trying to hate on LeBron, trying to bring him down because he's phenomenal. This is just facts. I mean, you think back, there's always going to be the video of Kyle Kuzma literally having to push LeBron in position to be in the right defensive position. And still, an open 3-point shot, came over LeBron after that. You can't, just turn it on for that. And I mean, we've seen situations recently where, to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, it almost looks like LeBron is basically out there trying to go for his stats at the offensive end of the floor, because we've seen games recently where the Lakers are down 30 or 35 points going into the fourth quarter, and LeBron is still leading both teams in minutes played. And I'm like, I'm sorry, if you're going to lose a game by 25 or 30 points, there's no need for LeBron to be playing 35, 40 minutes a game. Make no mistake about it. And some people are going to say, well, LeBron has to go out there and try to carry the team and give them a chance to win. I get that part. But the bottom line is, if you're in the fourth quarter and you're down 30 points, you're not winning. That's an opportunity. You know what? Let's give, the 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th guys on the team an opportunity to go out there and see what they can do. Because obviously, with the starting five and the first couple of subs off the bench, we have not gotten it done tonight. So, that part of it is very, questionable from that aspect. To me, my other thing with Anthony Davis, and I'm going to piggyback off of what you said, I don't think that the Lakers are going to get anything close again from Anthony Davis in regards to what they got from him in 2020 when they won that playoff bubble. Because when you saw AD play in that bubble, AD played to his potential. He has not played to his potential since. And throughout his career, he's always been unable to avoid the injury bug. We've seen that again. And I know that there are some people out there that are just hopeful that, the return of Anthony Davis is going to allow the Lakers to make a run. I'm not buying it. And the reason is this. I talked about this yesterday on my podcast. The Phoenix Suns are the best team in the Western Conference. And when it comes to playoffs, it's not about the individuals. It's about the team. The Suns play defense. They have solid ball movement on the offensive end of the court. And of course, as long as they have Chris Paul healthy, they definitely have a shot. But you just can't come in if you're the Lakers. You've been a bad defensive team all year long. You have had no cohesion whatsoever all year long. And then you just expect to walk on the playoff floor and just turn the switch on. That's if they get in, because right now the Lakers are ninth. They're holding off New Orleans by a half game. And then on top of that, you have the San Antonio Spurs who are creeping up as well. But even with that said, if the Lakers, if they hold serve as far as where they're at right now, they would face the Clippers in that first play-in game. The Clippers do not fear the Lakers. We know that. The Clippers actually swept the Lakers this year. And, if you're the Lakers, you should be embarrassed by that, because this is a Clippers team that has not had the services of Kawhi Leonard all year long and Paul George the majority of the season. They're basically going out there and doing it with role guys. And, this Clipper team does not fear them. So it's not like exactly cut and dry that we can go up there and say, hey, the Lakers are going to get into the postseason and make a run.
You know what? I think we talked about the Lakers maybe a month ago. And I told you, I sat here right in this same blue chair, and I told you that the Lakers stink and that there's no way that they will be making the playoffs as far as I was concerned. I always thought they had a shot to get into the play-in, but it's almost like kind of getting into the playoffs and through the back door. And since they've had the play-in situation, I don't, how can I look at it? kind of sort of like the bubble. I'm gonna keep it 100, which I kind of look at it like the bubble in the sense where it's kind of sort of not real in the sense you didn't go out and flat out earn your playoff spot. To me, the distractions on the end of the Lakers between players being moved, between Frank Vogel being in the hot seat all year long, his offensive substitution patterns, his lack of defense, a lot of this goes again back to the assistant coaches also for the Lakers, because your job is to help develop a game plan along with the assistant coach, something that kind of everybody that's on that roster, whenever they hit the floor, they can slide into a certain type of defensive game plan. But I've never seen a game plan where you just let guys go up the middle, you let them take any shot they want, you let them do whatever they want. Next thing, here you are at the end of the first quarter, you're down by 13, 14 points. By the half, the opposing team has scored 78 points in the first 2 quarters. That's not good basketball at all. And it begins and it ends with your leader, again, A1 LeBron James. And people are saying, well, look at what he's doing. He's averaging 30 points a game here in his 18th season. Okay, but they're losing. They've lost last year. The only winning season they've had where they went to the playoffs and were successful out of the 4 years that LeBron has been in LA was the bubble year. All right. And they seem to never got it together. As far as Anthony Davis, he's been 4-16. The Lakers are 4-16 since he went down. All right. Like you said, he was a catalyst in every single movement that they made that bubble year. And he played up to who he is. He has actually averaged career lows and everything this year. And he actually, since he joined the Lakers, his stats have been in decline. When I said that to Lakers Nation in a podcast, they were very angry with me. But I said, everybody that comes to the Lakers, that's a star. If you're playing with LeBron or wherever LeBron is, your stats will take a hit. And even with a healthy AD, I don't think he would have been able to help the Lakers be able to beat a team like the Phoenix Suns or even the Memphis Grizzlies, or Dallas gave him a hard time. There's no answer for what we talk about. There's no quick fix, William.
No, there isn't. I mean, you look at it, to me, I look at this team and, at the end of the day, yeah, you have some high profile players on this team that were brought in. You have some players that are definitely going to end up in the Basketball Hall of Fame. You have 4 players on this roster on the NBA's 75th all-time team. But the thing is, it's like Carmelo Anthony, who is a first ballot Hall of Famer, has never been known for defense. So you have to understand that Carmelo is a scorer and nothing else. And you got him coming off the bench. Russ, there have been people, and now you're seeing that posse starting to grow now as far as people who feel that, hey, Russ needs to be better, or he would be better served coming off the bench. And honestly, I've been in that camp since early on, because to me, the way Westbrook plays, as far as getting to the basket, is kind of like similar to what LeBron does. And this is why, people, said it wasn't going to be a slam dunk when LeBron went to Miami initially to win, because, his style and D-Wade style was so much, similar. So, that aspect, is an adjustment that, in my opinion, the Lakers never made. And then again, like you mentioned, players always have to, sacrifice their games, to play alongside LeBron. We saw it with Chris Bosh in Miami. We saw it with Kevin Love in Cleveland, as both of those guys who were more back to the basket players became more perimeter players as their careers progressed. And I think, this is going to be a very interesting offseason for the Lakers. And I will say it from this standpoint, because we saw during LeBron's time in Miami that, he got frustrated when Pat Riley wasn't going to let him get his way. And, Pat Riley, for all of his flash, he's still an old school guy. We saw it in Cleveland the second time around, where Dan Gilbert, still wanted his control of the team. LeBron wanted Dan Gilbert to trade that first round pick that the Cavs got from the Celtics that initially belonged to the Brooklyn Nets. And Dan Gilbert basically said, hey, sign your extension and I'll do it. And LeBron refused to sign the extension and he didn't trade the pick in order to get DeAndre Jordan. That was LeBron's last year in Cleveland. So I'm really going to be interested to see what the Lakers do here because they've exhausted a lot of their future resources in order to put things around
That's correct.
LeBron. And
That's
and
correct.
they have a chance. They did get a championship in place, but at the same time, you have to think about your future because as good as LeBron is, when he leaves teams, they always take several steps back because all of their resources have been exhausted. We saw it take Miami a couple of years to get back to postseason contention. We saw it with the Cavs as well. Definitely not the first time, but the second time around, the Cavs are making moves, and I think that is a credit to their young team and everything that they've got going for them right now. One of the better feel-good stories of this NBA season, to me,
Right.
Cleveland
Right.
has overachieved, and they're going to be a playoff team. But nonetheless, if you're the Lakers, you might have to start thinking about that as well, because is this going to be who you are with LeBron going forward? We know Frank Vogel is not coming back as head coach. That is a guarantee. So
Right.
it's going to be, will you find a way to put more personnel around LeBron and make another push for a title with him on your roster, or do you go in a different direction? We'll have to wait and see.
Well, I'm gonna keep it 100 with you. The Lakers are in what I would consider a garbage can, and they're looking for a steak inside of a garbage can. Guess what? It ain't gonna happen. You can't turn it on. You can't turn it off. I think that Russell Westbrook he's a complete convenient tool that you can blame everything on and say it didn't work because of Russ. I believe that Russ overthought this season. I believe Russ has been more of a distraction than a good player for the Lakers this season. I think the circus has finally caught up to the Lakers, and this has been a circus since the beginning of the LeBron James regime in LA. It's just been one thing after the next, most of it off the court, complaining, a revolving carousel of players. First, they blamed all the young players, got rid of all of them. Now you got the old players. Now you're blaming them. Now you're going to get rid of them. The Lakers have basically no draft picks, period. They can't do anything. So literally, they're going to have to, give some people away, take a gutted roster, and basically just rebuild from this point in time. And I'm going to blame the whole entire Laker coaching staff. But more than anybody, my finger pointing starts with LeBron James, and he controls the tempo of the game. He has the ball in his hands about 30% of the time. So
Yeah,
I have the ball in my hands 30% of the time. I dictate the game. Russ, they're about 25, 26% of the time. But equally they both have impact because they have the ball. So I'm throwing everybody under the bus. I'm not, it's a horrible display, like you said, to see LeBron, how they said he's old when people want to make it convenient when he's not successful. Then he's great. Look at him at this age doing this, that, and the third, as people feel that they could use it. And ultimately, to me, I think they're where they belong. I think they are what they are. And they will be sitting on the couch right here with me and you in the next couple of weeks.
oh, definitely. I mean, you look at Russell Westbrook playing like, I talked about earlier, there's nothing that is any different about his game this year than it was in past years. But I will say this about Russ is that when you watch him play, he is making one of the most cardinal mistakes that you can make as an athlete in any sport. And what that is, Russell Westbrook is thinking his way through games instead of
Overthinking, yeah.
and instead of reacting. And Russ has a shot, and you could see he's like, "Oh, should I shoot or should I not shoot?" And the thing is like Russell Westbrook is never going to be a volume shooter. You are never going to confuse Russell Westbrook with Steph Curry. You're never going to confuse him with Reggie Miller. The bottom line is, Russ might get 28 points for you, but at the same time, it's going to take 28 shots for him to get there. He
Right.
might be like 8 or 9 of 28 shooting, and he's going to make up for it at the free throw line. He's going to get his boards. He's going to get his assists. So the thing is like that's who Russell Westbrook is. And, it's unfortunate that he has been the scapegoat for this club. And at the
Yes,
end,
absolutely.
and I mean, at the end of the day, is Russell Westbrook a Hall of Famer? Absolutely. But he's probably going to be in the category of one of those players that never got a championship ring at the end of his career. That's the bottom line. Because the thing is, it's like Russ has never been able to adjust who he is as a player. And it's just unfortunate. Well, I could say it's unfortunate, but it's just, the reality of it that, he's on center stage right now. And of course, when you play alongside a guy like LeBron James, the spotlight is going to be on you every single game. Russ, don't get me wrong, the spotlight was on him in OKC playing alongside KD, but it's not the same. And now, you're really seeing it, basically, Russ went to Houston. Okay, had his 1 year. They got bounced out in the first round. Okay. You expected that. Went to Washington, same thing. But now with LA, the expectations did ratchet up to another level. But honestly, this team was poorly constructed. They were an old team to begin with. Let's not forget the Lakers also in the offseason brought in both DeAndre Jordan and Rajon Rondo. And of course, Rondo's now with the Cavs and DeAndre is playing with the Sixers. So, you still have Dwight Howard on this team. But again, it's not the defensive energy that we saw with the Lakers a couple of years ago when they won. And you watch this team play, and they start off games like a bad team. If the Lakers find themselves down 14-4 after the first couple of minutes in the game, they just go in the shell. Everybody starts pressing. And whatever game plan that Frank Vogel had, coming into that contest is now thrown out of the window because it's like, oh, here we go again. And with that said, with the Lakers, they just go down a rabbit hole. And that is exactly why they're 31-42.
Well, at the end of the day, I don't think it's pretty much nothing much else we could pretty much talk about with them. They're in, like I said, they're in the garbage can looking for a steak. It ain't gonna happen this year. And like I said, I'm not taking nothing away from LeBron James' greatness because if you listen to some of the things we're saying, we're actually telling facts about it. But more so on my behalf, it may sound like hating, as I've been called the LeBron hater, which I am not. I respect greatness, but I'll respect it when he retires. I said that when he went to Los Angeles Lakers, he would basically tear that franchise up. And for all the good he can do, like you said, when he leaves, and he's probably going to leave after this season. They don't have any draft picks. They don't have anybody really on that roster. They're going to lose some players. Some players are going to get traded. Some people are going to get moved around. They got a couple of young guys. They had some young guys. Caruso on them. They traded all those guys away. The Pelicans, which are breathing down the Lakers' necks right now, and that I believe they're number 10 right now.
Half game behind the Lakers right now.
There you go. They're breathing out. With those same guys that the Lakers traded, minus Zion Williamson. All right, so that goes to show you that either the Lakers are really not a good team, or somewhere along the line they might have overachieved over the last few years and tricking everybody into believing that they were an elite team. I mean, once the defense went down at the middle of last year, and a big part of it surrounded Anthony Davis, who took a beating because he didn't have JaVale McGee and he didn't have Uncle Peanut. I can't say Uncle Peanut Butter. Dwight Howard to kind of like cover him and kind of like kind of provide a cage around him so he could do it and operate in a certain type of way. He had to become the number one at center. And to me, I always said Anthony Davis is not a center. They could say whatever they want to say. I would say he has a power forward's body with a two-guard mentality. He's too big for that. So you sit there and you watch, and he's always hurt. Okay, fine. But as you watch him around the basket play, you would figure instead of him selling for the jump shot, he would more power down to the basket, and him trying to power down to the basket to give us, the public, who's watching him, what we expect him to do. Again, he gets hurt. Gets hurt again. Gets hurt again. So I pretty much ain't got much more to say about them. I think we summed it up in a nutshell, William.
Yeah, I mean, I will say this about AD, just a final thought on him. To me, I think Anthony Davis is a clear-cut example as far as what separates the good players from the great players in sports. And I say that because, regardless of the sport, you see a team win or you see a player finally, reach that pinnacle where he gets that first title. He's able to put that onto his resume. It's very difficult, and I'm not saying this as a slight to AD. It's very difficult to want to come back and achieve it again because you put in so much work to get there. You're finally lauded as a champion, and sometimes you relax. It takes a certain player to have that hunger, to want to go back and do it again, and that's why it's so difficult, for teams to repeat. And that's why you don't see it happening that often because number one, you have to come back with a hunger in order to win. So to me, I don't think AD has that hunger, and that's not a slight to him because he's not the first guy that's going to be like that in sports or let me say he is not the first guy that's like that in sports as far as getting to that point and winning. And he darn sure isn't going to be the last. That's the bottom line. So, I mean, I will say this about the Lakers. To quote the great Bill Parcells, you are who you are. The Lakers are going to finish this season with a losing record. They're going to be in a play-in tournament. I'm not even guaranteeing them that the Lakers again are going to get out of that play-in tournament because in a one-game scenario, anything can happen. And right now, they are facing a date with the Clippers in that play-in game. I'll tell you like this, regardless if the Lakers are the home team in that game or the Clippers are the home team in that game, you are probably going to have more Clipper fans in the stands that night than you would Laker fans. Because, for a Lakers fan standpoint, they're probably like, you know what, you know, this team really hasn't shown up all season long. Why are we going to come out here and support them now? The Clippers are hungry, man. And, I'm not saying that the Clippers are going to go out there and win it all because they're not. But the thing is, they've got some hunger in them. They're playing, with a chip on their shoulders. And you have an entire roster of guys like that. And basically, in the 4 games that the Lakers have played the Clippers this season, they've turned Reggie Jackson into Allen Iverson. So Reggie Jackson, when
Yep.
when he sees them, it's go time for him. So I mean, that's my final thought on the Lakers. They are who they are, and I don't expect anything from them, for the rest of the regular season, play-in tournament, playoffs, whatever.
Yeah. Again, they'll be sitting right here with us a couple of weeks. You know what I'm saying? So that's it. I ain't got nothing else to say, man. I don't feel sorry for nobody. Hey, everybody do what they got to do.
Mhm.
I can't wait to repost this. I'll tell you that much.
So there you have it. That is our take on the Lakers, and I want to take this time out to thank Cal One the God for chiming in
Thank
today.
you, brother, for having me.
And Cal, as always, is there anybody out there that you want to show some love to, man?
Oh, I want to thank. I'm not a Nets fan, but you see this stuff. I want to thank Sim Salabim Ali Abu Abid for the Nets gear last year. It was a birthday present from him. I am from New York. I'm a New Yorker, so I appreciate it. And not no digs against the Knicks, but this was the best choice I could have got to put on something representing New York. So thank you, Sim Salabim.
All right. Well, as always, thanks for Cal One the God for chiming in. And folks, if you like what you saw and heard today, please feel free to hit the like button as well as subscribing to this channel. And if you're on Twitter, please feel free to follow me at 300 pounds of sports. And like I always say, if you follow me, it'll be my pleasure to follow you right back. There's also the sports discussion group on Facebook at the Sports Depot 365. You can check it out, drop a line, and be a part of one of the better sports debating sites going on social media. So for Cal One to God, my name
Yes,
is
sir.
William Martin, signing off, saying take care and have yourselves a wonderful day.